Hey team, and welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're new here. My name is Ryan Butler, and today we are going to talk about the magical election opportunities that we're going to have between gotta check my paper, between our Libra New Moon on October 21st and our Scorpio New Moon on a date I did not write down, so who knows when it'll happen. For this month, we have quite a lot going on for us, and I kind of already anticipated that moving into it since I had said in previous videos that August and October were really going to be our big months for like activity. And we're really seeing that as we're kind of closing out October and moving into November. I don't know how November and December's new moons, I don't know what their lunation cycles are going to look like insofar as election opportunities that we're going to have, but right now we've got a lot, which is great. So hopefully, no matter what happens for the rest of the year, there will be some opportunities for everyone to pick up, kind of no matter what they're going through, to kind of see them through to the end of the year. We're also going to start working on our 2026 planetary elections calendar like we did for 2025. Hopefully there will be some good stuff there. I haven't taken a look yet, but I know that we're going to encounter some issues in that, of course, Saturn is not going to be used again for anything. And then Jupiter won't be used very much either. So it's really going to come down to, Mars and under Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, the Moon, to Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury. No, that's five. I forgot how many planets there were for a second. So it's really going to be up to them to kind of populate our calendar for talismanic events for planets for next year. So hopefully they're able to do that. But I am planning on another 2026 calendar like I did last year. People seem to really enjoy that, and it was really helpful for me to have as well. Just kind of looking at things or doing these. So really looking forward to doing that again. Hopefully there's good stuff. But we're going to go ahead and jump on in. There's a great variety going on here. And yeah, we're just going to go ahead and get started. Our first election opportunity is going to be a Western European exclusive, and it's going to be for the 18th Lunar Mansion. And the 18th Lunar Mansion is one of those healing mansions that we like when they come up so much. It is a mansion that kind of specifically focuses on getting better, on recovering, on overcoming some illness. So I say that because we have some talismans where their healing energy is really a little bit more in like preventative. It's about maintaining health, keeping people strong, keeping bodies strong. Or in a kind of a loose way you can read them, helping the body become stronger after or while recovering from something, but not really so much in like overcoming illness. But the 18th Lunar Mansion is that. So the 18th Lunar Mansion, really helpful for overcoming illnesses. I also like to recommend it for people who are about to undergo surgery, if they know that's something that they're going to have to do in the future, because the 18th Lunar Mansion has these sort of like surgical characteristics to it that differ from some of the other lunar mansions that are about health. So I like the 18th Lunar Mansion, even though I've had kind of weird experiences with it. But it's good for these specific instances. And in a lot of ways, it's a very like, once its job is done, we're done here. And I think that also is kind of a different way of working with it than some of the others, where you're kind of encouraged or expected to sort of carry them with you for as long as you want. But for the 18th Lunar Mansion, it really seems to function better when given specific jobs, and kind of, in my experience at least, acts out when it doesn't have anything specifically to do. So be mindful of it. Something to know. They're all snowflakes. They're all a little bit different. They all do their own thing. But that's the 18th Lunar Mansion. Really great to have. But our election opportunity for the 18th Mansion for Western Europe is going to be on October 23rd at 10:04 in the morning. Oh, another fun thing for this video is it's going to be testing Ryan's ability to remember anything, because during this time, Europe and North America switch from daylight savings time to standard time, which is fine. But they don't switch at the same time, which is not fine. So I have to remember two different dates, which is already too much for me. I have to remember two different dates of when they switch and try to change these charts accordingly. So we're going to see. It'd be great if I could do like real live betting, whether or not I'll remember to do this or not. But place your bets. We'll see what happens. So 10:23 at 10:04 in the morning, we're looking for these late mid degrees of Scorpio rising, 17 degrees Scorpio. And in our election here, we're going to have the moon on the ascendant in the 18th mansion. And during that time, she's going to be applying the conjunction to Mars here in Scorpio. This chart is a little bit differently, is a little bit different kind of in how it's formatted than we would kind of normally want them to be. Um, and that was a really weird way of saying that, like, oh, hey, Mars is involved here. Oh, I'm like flipping this around. It's probably in the microphone. It's a really kind of convoluted way of saying, hey, Mars is involved here. And a lot of times we don't want Mars involved with things, especially when it comes to health. But Mars in its domicile in Scorpio, while ruling the first house, is an excellent thing for the moon to apply to or to be involved in. Anytime a malefic planet, like a classically malefic or kind of universally malefic planet, is in domicile or ruling the first house or both, they make excellent planets to work with for talisman making. So don't think you can't ever use them. There are good situations where you can. So this is one of those instances with Mars, the moon applying to Mars in his domicile in Scorpio. Wait a second. This is a Mars planetary talisman. What? 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 Why did I not know about this? October 23rd. Hold on. What? This is the Mars planetary talisman. Hold on. Gotta check my... I didn't write this down. This is why I was saying, like, oh, having the calendar has been helpful for me because I get to, like, write things. But this is not, I didn't put this on. That's crazy. This is, okay, so this is a Mars planetary talisman. 100%. This takes place during Mars's hour. But it's kind of quick. Mars's hour ends. Yeah, Mars's hour ends. So this chart is set for, like, yeah, in like 6 minutes. So if you can do it real fast. But yeah. Okay, so about 10 o'clock. About 10 o'clock in the morning is the Mars planetary talisman, October 23rd. And you have until about 10:12, 10:11 to fix it, to get it done. So you have like a 10-11 minute window for a Mars planetary talisman. That's crazy. Huh. I 100% had just written this down as an 18th Lunar Mansion talisman, which it can be, but now it's a Mars planetary talisman. So there's that. Okay, cool. Our next election opportunity after that surprise Mars talisman is going to be a 19th Lunar Mansion talisman, which hopefully will also not turn out to be another planetary talisman that I didn't know about, because I don't think I can go through that twice in one video. But our 19th Lunar Mansion is a really great one. It is a mansion that is primarily concerned with, in some ways, sexual wellness, in other ways, protecting against the complications for, like, during pregnancy and childbirth. The 19th Lunar Mansion is much more female body coded. Not that it can't help anyone and everyone going through some sort of like sexual issue, but the text of it is very much like menstrual cycle focused. So that's sort of the idea. And then, of course, assistance during pregnancy and childbirth as well. So the 19th Lunar Mansion, really helpful for anybody who is, maybe going through difficult menstrual cycles or kind of wants a little bit of extra help or protection during pregnancy, which is always a scary thing. The 19th Lunar Mansion, very helpful. So for the 19th Lunar Mansion, it's going to be a another Western European exclusive. And here it's going to take place on October 24th at about 11:30. 11:24 is what this chart is set for. And here we're going to have the moon on the ascendant in the 19th mansion, and she's going to be applying this sextile to Venus in Libra. And I really like this connection. Of course, for any mansion, for any fixed star, for any planet, any election, you're looking for a planet that is you're looking for the moon to apply to whatever planet is most fit to do the business, like whatever the talisman is for. For planetary talismans, that's always going to be the moon applying to the planet the talisman is made for. Fixed stars have their own kind of specific planets that they're meant to match with. Lunar mansions have a little bit more of an open-ended response to them. Like you can kind of pick and choose who you would go with. But for the 19th Lunar Mansion, which is obviously much more focused on, female sexual health, childbirth, pregnancy, Venus is the obvious one to go to. Jupiter, in its connections with like health, can also be a good one as well. And then after that, it starts to get a little bit more, like maybe we could use it if we wanted to. But Venus obviously is the number one choice here. So I really like having that, especially Venus being very powerful here. And yeah, just a really great connection here. The moon and the ascendant are both free from difficult aspects with Mars, or for Saturn, far enough away from the sun to be visible, no problems there. So Jupiter also as the ruler of the first house up over here in Cancer. unafflicted by Mars and Saturn. They're currently in that weird little grand trine shape that they've been kind of building up towards for a little while. But all in all, a great election for this 19th Lunar Mansion to pick up for anybody who might be, for anybody or anybody who might know somebody who is going through, these often uncomfortable, we're going to put pregnancy mildly as uncomfortable situations to help give a little bit of relief. Our next election opportunity, which I believe is our third one, is going to be for the 20th Lunar Mansion. Now, the 20th Lunar Mansion is a mansion that is very focused on, it's traditionally written about as like for hunting, for helping to capture things, helpful for people working with animals. There's like an animal angle to it, we'll say. So absolutely can be utilized by anybody who is a hunter, who hunts maybe for sport or as a recreational hobby, to help with population control, various local animals, whatever. No problem there. Absolutely it can be. But I am of the camp that these ancient, often 1100-ish years old descriptions for talismans don't have to be just for what they say on paper, that they are updated somewhat to fit within our kind of current cultural milieu, we'll say. So the 20th Lunar Mansion, while it can be used for hunting, if you wanted to keep with the more like textual based use of it, absolutely can be. I like to think that we as people hunt for a lot of things, and so I think of the 20th Lunar Mansion primarily as like long-term goal, like being oriented towards long-term goal planning, towards and gain and assessment and things like that. So like we hunt for a lot of things. We hunt for jobs, we hunt for apartments, we hunt for dating partners. So I like the 20th Lunar Mansion as something that is more about obtaining a goal. And in that way, it can be something that's used both for gaining or for losing. And so, if you wanted to quit something, that could be a goal for maybe the 20th Lunar Mansion during the waning moon. During waxing moons, like we have now, the 20th Lunar Mansion is going to be specifically used as a goal to gain something. So be mindful of that while working with this, if this is something that you plan on doing. I'm sneezing, I'm cold, and I pulled a muscle in my back trying to pull a blanket over my head at a weird angle. So I'm not doing well. I'm falling apart at the seams, you guys. But this 20th Lunar Mansion talisman is something that we're going to have the opportunity for both in North America and Australia. I'm going to have to ask Western Europe, North Africa to sit down for a second. They've already taken up all of this video so far. And hilariously though, these elections are going to look almost the exact same as the 19th Lunar Mansion in Western Europe, but the moon is moved into... The 19th Lunar Mansion ends at 4 degrees Sagittarius, and so you'll see the moon here and is beyond that, is past that in the 20th mansion, but they all look the same. So for North America, that's going to take place at October 24th at around 10:10 in the morning. And here, like I said, it's going to look very similar. You're going to keep the early degrees of Sagittarius rising, the moon in the ascendant in the 20th Lunar Mansion, and she's going to be applying the sextile to Venus in Libra. So feel free to use Venus here as a way. Well, let's take a step back. So why Venus? Well, Venus is a naturally benefic planet. She wants to give. She wants to help people, get things. She likes to say yes to things. So having her be the moon's partner in helping with the 20th Lunar Mansion brings that like giving benefic yes and energy to the talisman, which is something that we want because it is a 20th Lunar Mansion talisman that is about the realization of a goal. You can also lean into Venus more specifically and her significations and her powers to more fine-tune what it is that the goal is about. So for Venus, maybe it's about relationships, maybe it's about understanding people better, maybe it's about having a closer relationship with someone, or anything like that. That's the Venus aspect of it. It can be about money too. Venus can help with money. But those would be the two. You don't have to do it that way. Venus as a benefic is capable of generally good things. So if you're trying to if you're trying to get a job somewhere, look for employment. Well, that might not be a good example. Venus isn't typically about employment, but employment is obviously tied to money, which Venus is also kind of about. So that might be not a great way to go about it. Anyway, long story short, you can either lean into Venus specifically as Venus energy to help in the realization of a goal that is also within the purview of Venus, or you can lean into Venus here as kind of like a general benefic who wants things to be good for people and not really care too much about what the specifics are. Up to you. Other than that, the moon is unafflicted by Mars or Saturn. Jupiter as the ruler of Sagittarius, the ruler of the first house, also unafflicted by Mars or Saturn. But we're about to, oh yeah, that's the other thing. We're about to kind of lose our Jupiter angle here, because Jupiter is preparing to station retrograde. I think at some point in November. I'm not exactly sure when it happens. Perhaps I should know. The Australian version of the 20th Lunar Mansion takes place on October 25th at 8:04 in the morning, and again looks very similar. The moon in the 20th mansion on the ascendant here, applying this sextile to Venus, the closest one so far. While Jupiter as the ruler of Sagittarius hangs out over here in Cancer. Neither the moon, the ascendant, or Jupiter are afflicted by the malefic planets. The ruler of the first is not in the 12th house. The ruler of the first isn't retrograde. And yeah, everything that we typically are looking for Lunar Mansion talisman is present. We don't have any obvious afflictions that would disqualify that would disqualify this selection or make it potentially more difficult to work with. So just a good example of a 20th Mansion talisman. So our next electional opportunity is one finally that everybody in the world will get to participate in, at least those from the three locations that we typically survey: North America, Western Europe / North Africa, and Australia. Everyone will get to participate in a talisman for the 22nd Lunar Mansion. And kind of like the 20th Lunar Mansion, the 22nd Lunar Mansion is one that I feel has more use than maybe a lot of people kind of think about. The 22nd Lunar Mansion is about like suppression of rumors, so it can be helpful for kind of crafting I don't know what the word here is, a social narrative, I guess, about yourself, or, if you find yourself if you find yourself in a situation where people can't keep your name out of their mouth, 22nd Lunar Mansion is very helpful. Also just helpful in general to have to kind of like keep things positive. But the kind of bigger issue, I think, with the 22nd Lunar Mansion is that it's a talisman that is, in my opinion, primarily about like freedom and escape. So obviously within sort of the cultural context that this is referring to, it's about like imprisonment or potentially even slavery, depending on where you're at. And obviously that is still relevant today, but people have a harder time connecting with it. So I tend to see the 22nd Lunar Mansion primarily as a means by which we can escape things that are holding us back. Not that the 22nd Lunar Mansion can't be used to like get justice in a situation where somebody has been wrongfully accused or anything like that. Absolutely, it can be, and it should be used for that as well. But I think we see more. I think we see the 22nd Mansion being a little bit more relevant in kind of like the typical average life, as a means to get out of situations that we no longer want to be in, whether that is something that we feel like where we are actually literally stuck there, like in a job we don't like, or in difficult housing situations, or in a relationship that we're having a hard time breaking out of. Those are all good ways to use the 22nd Lunar Mansion. And I like to think of the 22nd Lunar Mansion as a get me the hell out of here card. So that's just me. So for our North American version of this chart, it is going to take place on October 26th at 1654. Here we're going to have the moon on the midheaven in the 22nd Lunar Mansion. And she is, I did not write it down, I think applying loosely the sextile to the sun. Okay, cool. So for North America, we're going to get the moon applying the sextile to the sun in the 22nd Lunar Mansion. And I think that's really great. The sun can be very empowering for people to kind of like assert their independence or their individuality in a situation where they maybe have felt more confined or unable to be themselves. I don't know what that's like. And having that sort of force of will or confidence to be that is something that the sun can absolutely help with. It can also be very helpful. The sun just has its ability to kind of illuminate a situation. Helpful to see what our options are when maybe something that we didn't realize before, can help us in a way that we didn't connect. So I like that aspect with the sun. The ruler of the first house is Mars up here, not really doing much, just conjoined Mercury. The moon is not afflicted by Saturn. She's separated 8-ish degrees from the square there, which might actually be a little bit close for some people, so be mindful of that. But we are moving beyond that and not in a bad aspect with Mars here. Mars also is not in a bad aspect with Saturn or combust the sun, but we're getting there. That's coming up. So all in all, um, as long as we're comfortable with the moon separation from Saturn, because I did not initially see that, this is a great election. That's the only thing kind of holding it back is the kind of remnants of the Saturn square on the moon. The Western Europe Northern Australian chart, which I know has now switched into standard time, I remembered, is going to take place on October 27th at 16:57, so just before 5 o'clock. Hold on. 1700, 5 o'clock, yeah. So just before 5 o'clock, just before 5 o'clock. And here we're going to have the moon hanging out towards the very end of the 22nd mansion. And she's gone beyond the sextile with the sun in this instance, and is now applying the square to Venus. So again, you can lean into Venus here as, a generally benefic planet who wants things that are best for people, or Venus, or it can be more specific about getting help with the situation that Venus is about. So again, probably a relationship to be more specific to Venus. You don't have to make it that way, but this would be, I would describe it more as an election, because of the Venus connection, that is perhaps more specifically tailored to getting out of a relationship kind of a situation. Then that's how I would describe it. It's a talisman that is useful for helpful to find freedom from something, but because of the Venus connection, it is more specifically helpful for freedom from a relationship that is, for whatever reason, difficult or unwanted. So that is typically how I try to describe these kinds of situations where something can be generally useful for kind of a variety of situations, but maybe more specifically inclined towards a specific scenario. Meanwhile, Mars rules the first house with Aries on the ascendant here. Mars isn't afflicted by Saturn. The moon now is very far away from that square of Saturn that we were a little bit nervous about potentially in the North American version of the chart. So that's good. The moon has moved on quite a ways, and that is no longer an issue. So another good example here of the 22nd Lunar Mansion. So our next selection opportunity is going to be for the 23rd Lunar Mansion, and this is something that's only going to be available in North America and Australia. So I'm going to need Western Europe, North Africa to go and grab a snack, get a drink, maybe bring us back something. That'd be great. And here it's going to be the opportunity for the 23rd Lunar Mansion. So the 23rd Lunar Mansion is one that is another healing one, that is a mansion that is primarily focused on. Let's not go about it that way. What we'll say about the 23rd Lunar Mansion is, it is a mansion that is primarily associated with sacrifice and swallowing. It has healing capabilities as a part of that. And in ways that are kind of similar to the 18th Lunar Mansion, it is very much about devouring illness, devouring pain. That's kind of the idea of it. And so where I was going with it initially before I kind of changed course was that it's one of those talismans. We try to maintain a certain connection with the lunar phase with lunar mansions. Where during waxing moons, we want our mansions to be focused on gaining and augmenting. During waning moons, we want them to be about reducing and diminishing. So I tend to go with the camp that is what healing talismans are primarily to be done during waxing moon phases. That's usually where I go with it. The 23rd Lunar Mansion and its kind of unique symbolism makes it to where it seems like it could function. It seems like it can and does function very well in both phases, both the waxing, don't know what accent that was, both the waxing and the waning phases. So here we have a waxing moon phase for the 23rd Lunar Mansion. It's focused primarily on healing because the 23rd mansion has this symbolism of devouring, of eating and swallowing. The symbolism implies very heavily that it can be especially useful for people who are dealing with some sort of illness or pain or disease or infection that is in those areas of the body, that are tied to digestion, all its processes: mouth, teeth, tongue, throat, esophagus, stomach. digestive tract, liver, blah, 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 the whole 9 yards. So a very helpful talisman in its kind of specificity, but also applies in a wide variety of ways through that specificity. Enough about the 23rd Lunar Mansion, Ryan. Let's just get into the elections. So the North American version of this chart is going to take place on October 22nd at 1725 at around 5:30. And I actually wrote this time down a little weird. For some reason, I put 1646 with a 2 degrees Aries ascendant, and I'm not 100% sure why I did that. We can look at it. It's just not that. That's not it. That's rough. That's bad. So it looks like this. I don't know why. I can't think. I don't know a reason why I would have preferred this over the one with just the moon on the midheaven. Like even now, I'm not really seeing it. And at first, I thought maybe I just wrote the time down weird. But it's odd that I also wrote the 2 degrees Aries ascendant. So I don't know what I was thinking. I wrote this a whole 1 day ago. So I'm a different person now. I'm a changed man. So there's no telling. But we're going to stick to, unless I suddenly see something that changes my mind, we're going to stick to that, whatever I said, 1728. But here we've got the moon in the 23rd mansion on the midheaven, and she's applying that square to Venus. Benefic planets want to heal. They want us to feel good. They want us to make us feel better most of the time. So having the moon applied to a benefic planet here, always very helpful. And those benefic planets are always very capable of accomplishing the business when it comes to health and healing talismans. So always really great. Mars is hanging out here. Not afflicted by Saturn, not combust the sun, but getting close to it, or not really close to it, but it's just coming up in a few days from this time. And yeah, the ascendant degree isn't afflicted by Saturn. Doesn't matter if it's afflicted by Mars because Mars rules it. The moon unafflicted by Saturn or Mars. Mars afflicting the moon wouldn't matter too much because of being the ruler of the first house. But yeah, just kind of a standard 23rd mansion talisman. The moon connecting to Venus is really great, even if it is through a square. It makes it a little bit more difficult, but our famous saying here, any aspect is better than no aspect, except for oppositions because they're trash. So I messed up, and there's not actually a 23rd Lunar Mansion for Australia. I wrote down 23rd, but it's actually the next one. So the 23rd Mansion is only available for North America. Whoops. Ugh, Lucy stole my eraser. So I have another cat. Okay, so one thing you need to know about me is that I'm one of those weirdos who likes to use all of his pencils up. Hold on, let me see if I can. I like to use up all my pencils. You can't really see. Whatever. Anyway, it's tiny. It's short. But what happens is, because I make so many mistakes in life, my eraser goes away. So no more eraser. So I have to use these erasers. That's fine. And that's fine, right? Except I have another cat. There's always a cat. That's the problem. I have another cat, Lucy, who likes to eat these. That's why it's all covered in bite marks. It's not me. Let me see if I can. There. So as you can see, it's all covered in bite marks. And this isn't me. I promise. I don't eat erasers. It's not me. But I have a cat, Lucy, who will take these and steal these and eat these. And I have a video of her doing it. I might try to find it. And I guess she stole another one because this is the only one I can find. My life is very difficult, is what I'm trying to tell you. There's always a cat that's always doing something. Anyway, now I have to fix all this because I messed up. Our next electional opportunity is going to be an Australian exclusive, and it's going to be for the 24th Lunar Mansion. The 24th Mansion is a really great mansion, very positive. It is primarily associated with multiplicity, and so it carries themes of conception, fertility, childbirth. So that's one part of it. Also, because of its associated with multiplicity, it's helpful for financial stability, for new income streams, that kind of thing. So 24th Mansion, definitely recommend it. Make one, put it in your wallet, that kind of thing, and just let it sit there. But this is going to be an Australian exclusive because I didn't like the other way that this was connecting in the other locations. So our election for this is going to take place on October 29th at 1832, and here we're going to have the moon in the 24th mansion on the midheaven, and she's going to be applying the square to the sun. So the sun, a planet that has to do with power, with honor, obviously with reward, and there's wealth involved with that too. The sun naturally symbolizes gold, for example, though in a lot of cases this would have been a better one to have Jupiter or Venus applying to, but the sun is a great third to go for here, and I feel like that's kind of how it goes for a lot of our more benefic oriented talismans. It's Jupiter first, then Venus, then the sun. There's somewhere I think the sun does better as the first one. But we're just rolling with the punches here. We have Mars as the ruler of the first house hanging out over here. Mars is unafflicted by Saturn. not combust the sun yet. What you could also maybe do is scoot this time back a minute, a little bit. Let me see. To something like this around 1821. And then you could also get Jupiter square the ascendant exactly, which would be an additional little bonus. But otherwise, I think that's all there really is to say about this chart. The moon's not afflicted by Saturn. And yeah, there you go. Always really nice to see the 24th Lunar Mansion when it comes around. Our next electional opportunity, just keep going down the list here, is going to be for the 25th Lunar Mansion. And the 25th Lunar Mansion is one that primarily has to do with like health and flow of resources. So the imagery of this is very plant-based. It's very much like, protecting trees, protecting vineyards, the images of a person planting a tree. So it's kind of got that going for it, which can be very helpful for people who obviously are into gardening or are into landscaping or just, want to have, a stronger connection with like the land and seasonal cycles and, their own food, that kind of thing. I think that's really great. It's something I've used the 25th Lunar Mansion for, can be used to help protect important plants. Or plants that are significant or special to you, or to kind of harbor that connection. Absolutely can be. But because of its strong connection with like agriculture, I tend to think of the 25th Lunar Mansion also being about financial resources, since agriculture was like the primary means by which people have historically supported themselves. So I also think of the 25th Lunar Mansion as like investing, helping to, make more money, helping to be more in a financially secure place. That tends to be how I think about the 25th Lunar Mansion kind of in general. And this is going to be something that we have opportunities for in all three of the locations that we typically survey. So the first one we're going to look at North America's, and it's going to take place on October 30th at 9 in the morning. And here we're going to have the moon here in the third house in the 25th mansion, and she's going to be applying the trine to Venus. So Venus, of course, as a benefic planet, wants to help and encourage growth, not just in people, but also in everything, plants, animals, whatever. So having the Moon-Venus connection here, very helpful to help do that. Venus also, as a benefic planet, wants to help with money. So there is still that connection with financial resources that Venus can help provide. And let's see. The moon is not afflicted by Saturn. We've got a square with Mars forming in about 8 degrees, but it's fine. I handled it because whenever you're in a situation where you have a malefic squaring the moon, if you can make that malefic the ruler of the first house, that is no longer an affliction. That's a pretty standard rule from like electional astrology in general. You can find it in Bonatti's electional book. It's just kind of a way to take a difficult lunar aspect and make it not difficult by giving the malefic planet a stake in the enterprise, is usually how I think of it. We make Mars responsible for something. Mars suddenly is like, I gotta do this. I gotta work now. Everybody's nightmare. But Mars and Saturn's a great way to kind of handle their more difficult influences if we're able to. So even though we have this Mars square approaching, making Mars the ruler of the first house makes it not a big deal. Makes it something we can work with. Other than that, the ascendant degree is not afflicted. Mars isn't afflicted as the ruler of the first house. And it's just a really nice connection with the moon trine a benefic planet during, like in a lunar mansion that is itself about, growth and stability and living life to a certain extent. For Western Europe and North Africa, that opportunity is going to be on October 30th at 9 in the morning as well. 9:08 is what this is set for. The moon in the third mansion, the moon in the third house in the 25th mansion. I wish she was in the third mansion. That'd be pretty cool too. And she is applying that trine to Venus, obviously a little bit further out than it was for the North American version. And because the moon is further back between North America and Western Europe, the square with Mars is further out, which makes it not much of a problem. Here we're about 12 degrees out from the square. I wouldn't worry about that. But even if it was closer, Mars rules the first house, has some responsibility, has some skin in the game, and so is not a detrimental influence to the moon anyway. Mars is unafflicted by Saturn. The ascendant is unafflicted by Saturn. The moon is unafflicted by Saturn. And we still have that connection with the very strong Venus in a good house to bring about, growth, to bring about growth and stability. Well, stability is more Jupiter's deal, but you get it. So for the Australian version, I'll give us a couple of options. The first one for October 30th at 8 in the morning. And here we're going to have the moon in the third house in the 25th mansion. She's still applying this trine to Venus, but it is about 10 degrees out, which is pretty far. This will have Jupiter as the ruler of the first house up here in Cancer, and we're about 13 degrees out from the square of Saturn to the ascendant, which I think is fine. Me doing math in my head, and now I'm thinking back doing math in my head, so I'm not doing math in my head anymore. 17 degrees away from the square of Mars. Don't laugh at me. Yes. 17 degrees away from the square of Mars. I figured that one out so fast. So obviously also not an issue. So this is one option that you can have for it if you want. It's a little looser of a connections between like Venus and the moon here, which may not be so preferred. But we also can do the moon on the midheaven. Whoops, too far. At around 1911, around sunset. Somewhere around 1911. We'd get the moon still in the 25th mansion in the 10th house. This connection with Venus would be closer, now within about 6 degrees, but then we're about 12 degrees out from the square of Mars, and Mars doesn't rule the ascendant in this chart, so we don't have that investment from Mars to kind of take care of the situation. So be mindful of that, whichever one you want to use. If you want the closer connection with the moon, but also getting closer to the square of Mars, 1911 is going to be your choice. But if you want kind of looser connections and keep the moon further away from Mars, that 9 o'clock in the morning one is what you're going to use. Hey team, welcome back another day. Welcome back for me. You've been here the whole time. Our next and our last Lunar Mansion election is going to be for the 9th Lunar Mansion. So here we've crossed into the waning moon phase. And so I mentioned this a little bit before. We try to sync our electional, for the Lunar Mansion specifically, we try to sync our electional uses to the waxing and waning of the moon. We try to make it like familiar or similar to whatever we're trying to get. Waxing moon, we try to do things to increase or to gain things. Waning moon, we try to get rid of stuff. So for the 9th Lunar Mansion, we can use it in a waning moon for cursing, if that's something that you want to do. I'll leave that to you to decide. But I like to use the 9th Lunar Mansion in the waning moon, also for cursing, but primarily for banishing. So the 9th Lunar Mansion is one that we kind of have slightly different takes on, depending on if it's waxing or waning. In the waning moon phase, we're thinking more about banishing. We're thinking more about trying to remove something negative from our circumstance. So typically the 9th Lunar Mansion is something that I think about more in terms of like banishing like spiritual, magical, or like energetic gunk. It's the best way I can think of it. Not everything that we kind of accumulate, not every bad thing that happens to us or every kind of like, I don't know, gross thing that attaches to it is intentional or sent by somebody else. Sometimes we just collect things as we go through life, as we kind of like, you know, interact with other people or things or whatever. So the 9th Lunar Mansion I like as sort of that kind of like, get this away from me kind of a thing. And so the 9th Lunar Mansion is going to be available for everywhere, for North America, Western Europe, North Africa, and Australia. For North America, our opportunity for this 9th Lunar Mansion is going to take place on November 9th at 21:19, and I did remember to switch it to standard time, so y'all lost that bet. And here we're going to have the moon in the 9th mansion applying the conjunction to Jupiter on the ascendant here. So Jupiter, I think, is a really nice protective. Oh, that's right. I remember now. I had a memory. I had a deep core memory of why I was specifically really excited about this. And it's because the moon is separating the trine to the sun and applying the conjunction with Jupiter. And I'm going to say that that's veneration. I'm going to say that trines to the sun count as veneration. You heard it here first, folks. You probably not here first. This is probably not the first time somebody said this. I'm sure I could find a text that says that that's true. But I'm going to say the moon is venerated. And for those who are maybe unfamiliar, veneration is kind of the opposite of besiegement. Besiegement is a really difficult condition for the moon where she is caught between the bad aspects of the malefic planets. Veneration is the opposite, where she is caught between the positive aspects of benefic planets. So separating from the trine to the sun, applying the conjunction of Jupiter, the moon is doing very well. She's even in her own domicile. And applying to Jupiter, who's in his own exaltation, a really great election for this kind of like protective work or banishing work. I mean, I say that. I actually would have really preferred this to be more protective oriented. So if this had happened during like a waxing moon phase, perfect, beautiful, lovely. But here, we're kind of leaning into Jupiter's power to like protect and kind of like keep clean, essentially, in a kind of way. This would have made a really awesome moon talisman, is what it would have done. And I'm kind of disappointed that it's not capable of being one, because in this moment it is the sun's day and Venus's hour. And even with the sun so close here to this fifth house cusp, when it moves over it, it'll just be it'll have just switched to Mercury's hour. So we can't just wait this out a little bit. So that's unfortunate that we missed this really great opportunity for what would have been a really nice moon talisman if we had like the timing correctly with it. But it does make it a very good ninth Lunar Mansion talisman. So please consider it, North America, if you're at all interested. The Western European and Northern African version of this chart is going to look very similar to the North American version with one key difference. It's going to take place on November 9th at 2102. And yeah, so like I said, very similar. We've got the moon on the ascendant here in the ninth mansion, but as you see very, very closely here, we've got the moon at 1727, and she is applying the trine to the sun at 1740. So I like the sun trine better for those of you who are able to get this. This might only be like just be mindful is what I'm going to say. If you're kind of recreating this in your own location, just be mindful that this trine is very, very tight, and make sure that the moon has not gone past 1740 Cancer. At that point, she'll be applying the conjunction with Jupiter, which is fine. We talked about that in the North American version, but I feel like the trine to the sun is superior just because the sun has natural like banishing tendencies or like characteristics to it. You know, the light of the sun banishes the darkness. Kind of the idea here. The sun has very, very strong, very potent natural like exorcistic type power associated with it, and leaning into it with this trine in this mansion is like the perfect combination when we're talking about planets that are capable of carrying out the business. So, you know, go with the sun if you can. I feel like it's the better connection. It's the more better in that it's more topically appropriate. But the conjunction with Jupiter, if you miss it, or if the moon is already past the trine to the sun as you like recreate the chart, the conjunction with Jupiter is still really good. It's just a vibe shift, basically. The Australian version is going to look kind of like a mix between the two. No, it looks different. Never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about. It looks different. Here we're going to have... Oh, sorry. It takes place November 10th at 4:43 in the morning. And here we've got the moon in the ninth mansion on the midheaven, and she's applying the trine to the sun again. And we've talked about why the sun is the great option for this talisman with its natural sort of exorcism and banishing, cleansing type powers associated with it. We've got Venus as the ruler of the first house here in the first house, unafflicted by Mars, unafflicted by Saturn. I don't think I talked about that in the other ones, but similarly. And the moon also unafflicted by the malefic planets. Just a great, just really great, just a good election, good timing for it. Very excited to have it, especially since in both of the cases where we're looking to, even in the North American version too, let me separate those two thoughts and say them instead of combining them and not saying them. How about that? How about we try that? I really enjoy that the trine in both try this again. I really enjoy that the trine in the Australian, Western Europe, Northern African versions are so tight. That is really good, and we've seen that the farther out an aspect is, the longer it seems to take for a talisman to manifest any effects. So I like that the next aspect is really close. I was going to say that that was not the case with the North American version, but even then, it's only like a 3-degree difference between the conjunction with between the conjunction of Jupiter with the moon. So even it has a very close conjunction as well, which is good. So those were those thoughts separated and stated clearly. But that's the ninth Lunar Mansion, a really great one to have, like for protection and boundaries. And I would not, I'll say this, these elections, because of their connection with benefic planets, are not conducive towards more aggressive forms of more aggressive applications. So we're going to call it not super conducive to that. So those were all of our Lunar Mansion talismans for this month. We do have 2 fixed stars that we can talk about, and then some planetary ones aside from the Mars one that I didn't realize was a Mars one that I led the episode with. What are you going to do? Keep it interesting. So the first fixed star we're going to talk about is going to be a North American exclusive, and that's going to be for Alphecca. Alphecca is the primary star of the Northern Crown constellation. It's like the crown jewel, and Alphecca is associated with, of course, it's a little bit more of like a socially motivated star. I usually call it like the bard of the zodiac, or not the zodiac, the bard of the Bohemians. In that it's more of like a charismatic based star. It's about getting people who are in positions of authority to like do favors, to be more amenable to your requests. It's also about having like a certain amount of social grace and being able to move through social, like potentially very like awkward or stressful social interactions more easily. It's about, you know, being a better, I guess you could say it's about like being a better public speaker, but not exactly. So it's really more about that sort of like social influence, yeah, that kind of like more social influence factor of a star is where we kind of think about it. It's going to take place on October 22nd at 8:25. I have switched back to to daylight time. What's my time? I have switched back to daylight time for this one, so it will be accurate. And here we've got Alphecca is projected to the ecliptic at 12 degrees and like 30. I think this is actually right where Alphecca is, 12:35. So we want to have that degree on the ascendant or the midheaven, and then we want the moon to be applying to that degree, and at the same time to be applying to a planet that's of the nature of that star. And Alphecca is a planet. I'm sorry, I always say that Alphecca is a planet. Well, I don't always say Alphecca is a planet, but I don't know. I have such a habit of calling things planets, I guess. I don't know what's wrong with me. Like Alphecca is a planet. Regulus is a planet. Everybody's a planet. We're all planets. But Alphecca is a star that is associated with the planets Venus and Mars. And so here Venus is not involved because she's, you know, averse way out there. But the moon is applying the conjunction with Mars after the, while she is also applying the conjunction with the degree of the fixed star. So we have all of those pieces together there on the ascendant. Saturn over here is not involved. And the only kind of thing is that 12 degrees between the sun and the moon is like exactly as many as you need for the moon to be visible. So this is like such a baby visible crescent moon that I worry that it doesn't count. I'm a little worried it doesn't count. But, you know, we're going to go with it. What's the worst that could happen? And this is also, if you're somebody who may be like elsewhere in the world as well, is maybe interested in an Alphecca talisman, upset that you don't have an opportunity for it, or if you're in North America and you're like, you know what, Ryan, that might be a little too close, that might be too much of a new moon, too close to the sun. We are in the time of year where Alphecca heliacal rises are starting to happen, so, you know, be mindful of that. Look that up for where that happens in your location, and because for me it's like November 2nd. So is that right? I better know because I'm doing a giveaway for it. Yes, the second. For me, it's the second. For you, it might be different, but if you're around my neck of the woods, it's probably also the second. But yeah, so that's coming up. Don't worry about it if you are interested in Alphecca but don't have an opportunity for it, or don't like this one for whatever reason. The main reason I said the heliacal rise is coming. The next fixed star that we're going to have an opportunity for is going to be for North America and for Australia, and it is for a Sirius fixed star talisman. Unfortunately, Sirius's heliacal rise is not coming up, but I do hear that it happens about every week. So there's that. For people who don't know about that, that's a deep cut. Sirius is a star that is in Canis Major, and it is associated with like power over weather. Maybe I've had good experiences with that, associated with control over spirits, and again, honors from people in authority. So having people who have some sort of like say in certain matters, more amenable to your requests. And those are basically your kind of like typical Sirius powers. Those are usually what you see associated with Sirius. So for the North American version, this is going to take place on November 9th at around 4 o'clock in the morning, 3:51, and I've switched back to standard time because we've fallen back here. And the only reason I just want to make it clear, the only reason I keep pointing out this time zone thing is because I get made fun of when I get time zones wrong, and I'm bad at them. So I get made fun of a lot, both in relation to these election videos, but also just in like my day-to-day scheduling life. I'm not good with time zones. It's just not working for me. But I'm getting better. This is me intentionally trying to get better. So please clap for my very small accomplishments. But Sirius, North American version, November 9th, around 4 o'clock in the morning. Sirius is projected to about 14 degrees of Cancer, so we've got that on the midheaven here. The moon is applying to that degree. And again, planets, we want the moon to apply to a planet that's associated with Sirius. Traditionally, Sirius is associated with Jupiter and Mars. And in this instance, the moon is actually applying a trine to the sun, but that's fine. For Sirius, I make an exception. I make an exception for two planets, I did again, planets, stars. I make an exception for two stars, Sirius and Regulus, and I think that they can both apply to the sun and be fine. I've had good experiences with Regulus applying to the sun. And that is because I feel like those stars have very strong associations with the sun. Regulus for very obvious reasons. Even back in Babylon, it was referred to as the king star. And for Sirius, it has more to do with Sirius as sort of the lead star within kind of like Egyptian cosmology. Famously, the heliacal rise of Sirius was when the Egyptian New Year was associated or like scheduled to. So Sirius also has these kind of like very similar solar qualities of like timekeeping, annual associations, seasonal changes, and even Marsilio Ficino in his 3 books on life puts Sirius as being in the chain of the sun. So we do have some traditional sources associated with that, even though Ficino is pretty late in the game. But I like the sun with Sirius, and it's going to give us an opportunity for a Sirius talisman when we wouldn't already have one. So I'm not anticipating much pushback, unless you want to fight about it, which is fine. But so we've got the moon applying to the sun, which I think is fine for Sirius and for Regulus. I think it makes sense. At the same time, we've got Libra rising over here, not afflicted by Mars or Saturn, and then Venus here as the ruler of the first house, also unafflicted by Mars or Saturn. The moon isn't afflicted by Mars or Saturn, and everything is looking pretty peachy keen there. That's our North American version. The Australian version is going to take place on November 9th at around 23:46, somewhere around that time. And again, we have Sirius's projected degree at 14 degrees Cancer on the ascendant here, and then it was on the midheaven in the North American version. The moon applying to that degree, and also at the same time the moon applying to the sun. I've already talked about why I like the sun for Sirius. We're not going to do it again. The moon's applying to that, connecting all those together. At the same time, the moon is going to go ahead and rule the first house here. She's not afflicted by Mars or Saturn. The ascendant degree also not afflicted by Mars or Saturn, and much more visible than, the Alphecca version was as well. But that's Sirius for Australia and for, everywhere who's going to get one. From there, we pivot to our final section, which is the planetary talismans. I accidentally had a Mars talisman at the beginning, so make sure to go back and refresh on that one if you're interested at all in a Mars talisman that snuck up on us. And we've got 2 elections for, not 2 elections per se, but elections for Venus and for Jupiter. North America has both a Venus and a Jupiter option, it seems, while Australia only has a Venus option, and Western Europe and North Africa don't have either. So for my Western Europe and North African viewers, bye, bye, but please stay to the end for the YouTube thing. But everywhere else, we're gonna dive into it. And our first one, we're gonna talk about our Venus elections. So our Venus election for North America is going to take place on October 27th at 5:47-ish in the morning. And here we're focused on, of course, Venus in Libra on the ascendant, the moon applying a square to Venus in Libra, and this takes place during Venus's hour. But you need to be a little bit careful with it, because the sun here is pretty far into the first house, which means that it's not very long until the hour switches and we kind of lose that power there. We kind of lose that connection. So let me get like a read on when that is to give you kind of a window. Actually, it looks like it's going to be pretty good. So it doesn't seem like we have a lot of things to worry about. Yeah. So until about 6:20. Yeah, that's a good amount of time. It's almost 40 minutes. So your election window to aim for this would be, kind of whenever you feel like Venus is angular. If we want to use the time that I said, like 5:45, 5:47, something like that, that's a good time to start it with. Though I'm not seeing any obvious connections that would make me think that you couldn't start earlier. Yeah, and then if you just want to go until, let me see, until obviously you want to make sure Venus is still angular, so you don't want more than like 21 degrees Libra to go on the ascendant. So yeah, around, okay, cool. So they kind of end at the same time. Venus being far enough away from the ascendant to be considered cadent happens at just about the same moment as the Mercury hour begins. So that one you have a pretty good amount of time to do what you need to do to get your talisman made, which is rare. That rarely happens to have more than like I feel like I've gotten so that this almost feels luxurious to me. This almost feels like luxurious use of time. Because I feel like anything over like 15 minutes to get a talisman made is just like, I have all day. Look at all this time I have now. So like 40 some odd minutes is insane to me, but that's a really good, well, Venus doesn't want to work. Venus doesn't want to work hard. So that's good. That's a really great option there. And then let's take a look at this in let's take a look at the Australian version. So the Australian version, their Venus talisman opportunity is going to take place actually on October 25th at 5:06 in the morning is what this chart's set for, somewhere around 5 o'clock in the morning. Very similar situation, but they have a little bit of an advantage over the North American version. Venus in Libra, Venus in her domicile, which is great. Venus in her domicile, very angular. It takes place on Venus's day, so you have until the sunrise basically to do whatever you want. And the moon is going to be applying the sextile to Venus, which is a much nicer, much more harmonious connection than, of course, the square was that we saw in the North American version. It also helps that the sextile is the aspect of Venus. So there's a nice amount of like similitude here in this chart that we didn't necessarily have in the North American version, which is I like the Australian version better. Congratulations. And yeah, you've got everything there for this window here. Like I said, our big issue with the North American version was that we were switching from 1 hour to the next, Venus's hour to Mercury, and that's what we needed to kind of underpin the election. But here, since it takes place during the final hours of Venus's astrological day, you have until Venus becomes too far away from the ascendant to be considered angular. So if you wanted to start at like 5 o'clock, if you wanted to say like 5 o'clock in the morning is my start time, that's great. There's no afflictions from malefics to really get in the way. The Saturn opposition is 10 degrees past the ascendant, which is like way far enough for me to not even think about. And then you could go, you wouldn't have to worry about kind of wrapping up or anything until, yeah, probably about here, 5:30. Yeah, around like 5:30. So you have a good 30 minutes. I forgot that Venus moves I forgot that Libra moves so quick over the ascendant in the southern hemisphere. I was like, wow, this is really rocketing by. What is happening? So that one you're more worried about Venus falling off of the angle, which doesn't happen until like 5:30. So even then you have a good 30-minute window to do whatever you need to do, which is fantastic. And then finally, we're going to have our Jupiter planetary option. We only have one, and it's only for North America, and that's going to take place on November 3rd at 22:55. So here we've got Jupiter actually, is this a good idea? Because what I'm realizing is that Jupiter's probably slowing down. And that might not be... Yeah, okay, never mind. We're going to call it there. So we're going to say that we don't have a Jupiter planetary option. Because what I'm realizing, like I said, is that Jupiter is really slowing down. It's only going like 1 minute. And so it's gonna... Yeah, it stations retrograde like 5 days later. 7 days later. So we're going to call it there, I guess. It would have been really nice to be able to pick up this extra Jupiter planetary talisman here, but I think we're probably going too slow to really get anything useful out of it. So... Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'll go ahead and talk about it and kind of leave it up to you, but I think that we might be too slow to really get anything very useful or very helpful out of it insofar as like eliciting or, creating positive outward change. But yeah, Jupiter in his in his exaltation, on the ascendant, the moon applies the square and it's Jupiter's hour. And Jupiter's hour just started too. The sun is only a few minutes past the fifth house cusp. But yeah, all the elements line up. My only concern is that I know that Jupiter is about to turn retrograde in about 7 days, and it's moving at like 1 minute a day, which is not great. It's not great. So I don't know. I'm gonna throw it out there. I think it's probably moving too slow. But I often wonder if like stationary or like very slow transiting. How do I put this? Sometimes I wonder if talismans made for planets that are moving very slowly, that are approaching their station, if those can't be useful for like internal contemplative type practices, I don't know. I have not tried, but that's been a new thing that I've wondered lately. So maybe this would be an opportunity to just try that. Don't know, can't say. But thank you all so much for being here. Those are all the electional opportunities that we have for this month. A good amount coming into us to kind of like, I knew that October was going to be busy, and it's nice to see so much of this happening, kind of as we're coming towards the end of the year. Hopefully we can all kind of make plans to enter 2026 and whatever chaos that has for us all in ways that are maybe a bit more secure or positive for us, and hopefully at least one of these Lunar Mansion talismans at least will find a home with someone out there who kind of is going through whatever they need with it. But yeah, we're going to start working on the 2026 calendar soon to see what that's going to have in store for us. Hopefully some goodies there. But everyone take care, and I will see you all again on our Scorpio New Moon to see what other elections we have to kind of wrap up the year with. Everyone take care, and I'll see you then.